Hey there, listeners. You wanted a deep dive on government funding and media. Buckle up, because we're about to go down a rabbit hole with this one.
Yeah, this one's a doozy.
So we're looking at this article. It's from Bitcoin University
Oh, yeah, I've seen this one.
called Defunding the U.S. Government Propaganda Machine.
Hmm.
Yeah, you heard that right, propaganda.
Definitely a bold claim.
So are you intrigued yet? I'm intrigued, let me tell you. We're going to explore some seriously eyebrow-raising ideas here.
Yeah.
Like, is USAID secretly funding media to control the narrative? Are words like misinformation being used as, like, weapons? And
Always wondered about that.
what's this about a department called Doge?
Doge.
Yeah, Doge. We'll get to that.
Okay. This article definitely, I mean, it really throws down the gauntlet,
Yeah,
challenging us to think differently about these organizations we think we know.
right.
And even, like, the language we use every single day.
Yeah.
It's really a deep dive into the murky waters.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
Murky waters, yeah.
Of how government, media, and public perception, how they all connect.
That's all intertwined,
And
right?
it really is.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
First up, USAID.
USAID. Okay.
I always thought they were all about, fighting poverty, promoting democracy around the world,
Right.
doing good things,
Yeah, that is their stated mission.
Right.
But this article is alleging something way more shady.
Ooh.
They claim that USAID is actually funneling taxpayer dollars into media outlets and NGOs
Really?
to control the narrative, but on, like, a global scale.
Whoa, hold up a sec. Are we talking, like, full-on mind control here?
Well, not necessarily mind control.
Okay.
It's more subtle than that.
What kind of control are we even talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The article highlights how subtle this alleged influence can be.
Oh, okay.
They point to USAID funding projects, seemingly benign projects, like, for example, Sesame Street in Iraq.
Sesame Street?
Yeah.
In Iraq?
And initiatives promoting gender-neutral language in Sri Lanka.
Oh, wow.
They even bring up bat virus research.
Bat virus research. Okay, now I am really intrigued. Like, how does that
Yeah.
how does that connect to controlling the narrative?
Well, the article argues that these projects, they seem unrelated, but they're carefully selected to shape public opinion in these countries. And ultimately, aligning it with U.S. interests.
So it's about, like, softly influencing, hearts and minds, not like, taking over the radio and...
Not like that.
Not like that.
No, it's much more subtle.
But that makes it even more insidious, in a way, right? If it's so subtle, how can you even see it?
Yeah, and it definitely raises questions about, transparency and intent.
Yeah.
If these projects are really all about spreading, positive values, democracy, and all that.
Right. Why all...
What is secrecy?
Yeah, why so hush-hush about it? Okay, so we've got USA potentially, like, pulling the strings behind the scenes, right?
Right.
But then the article takes a sharp turn.
Okay.
Starts talking about Orwellian tactics and media manipulation.
Yeah.
Where does that come in?
Well, the article really leans into this idea that language itself is being weaponized.
Like, what do they mean?
Words like science, democracy, and misinformation.
Yeah, we hear those all the time, I mean.
Exactly. And they're used to shut down debate, they say, and shape public opinion often without us even realizing it.
Hold on, are they saying, like, every time I hear the word science, now I should be suspicious?
No, not necessarily suspicious.
Okay.
But definitely aware.
Yeah.
Aware of the context.
Okay.
The article argues that these terms can be used to, shut down critical thinking. They do it by equating disagreeing with being anti-science or anti-democracy.
Oh, so you can't even question it.
Right. It's a way to control the narrative
Interesting.
by making it taboo to even question certain ideas.
Whoa. Yeah, that is kind of scary, right?
It is.
It makes you think twice about, like, how information is presented.
Yeah,
And what agendas might be lurking beneath the surface, right?
exactly. And that brings us to another pretty interesting claim.
Oh.
It's about the existence of a new government initiative called, wait for it, Doge?
Doge. You mean, like, the meme, seriously.
Yeah, you heard right, Doge, which stands for, get this, the Department of Government Efficiency.
Oh, okay.
And it's presented as this, like, rogue initiative aimed at exposing government waste and corruption.
So they're, like, draining the swamp? Is that...
That's the idea.
Okay, well, color me skeptical here.
Yeah.
A government agency dedicated to exposing government waste.
Yeah.
That's like the fox guarding the hen house, isn't it?
Well, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
But the article, it frames Doge as this, like, scrappy underdog
Okay.
going up against this big, entrenched bureaucracy.
David and Goliath.
And get this. They claim Doge is backed by Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Whoa, okay, that is a plot twist I did not see coming.
Right.
A tech billionaire and a populist politician? Are they really teaming up to, like, fight government waste? I don't know about that.
It's an interesting pairing, for sure.
I mean, that's either a recipe for disaster or, like, a brilliant PR move, right?
It really makes you wonder about their motives, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
The article suggests Doge has already uncovered some pretty shocking things, like federal employees gambling on the clock,
No.
the Pentagon failing audits for years,
What?
and like a massive resistance to transparency within the government.
Wow, if even half of that is true, that's pretty damning stuff.
Yeah.
But, okay, I'm still trying to figure this out. How does this Doge initiative tie back to the whole, propaganda machine idea?
Right.
Are they, like, the good guys fighting back?
Well, that seems to be how the article is positioning them,
Like Doge?
Doge is presented as this, like, shining beacon of truth. They're trying to expose the real story behind government spending and activities.
Right.
They say they're using data analysis and transparency to hold the powerful accountable.
But wait, if Doge is part of the government, how can they be independent enough to, like, actually expose its flaws?
It's a good question.
It seems a little contradictory, don't you think?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And the article doesn't really, go into detail about that.
Okay.
Which makes their claims about Doge's effectiveness a bit harder to believe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got, let me just recap here.
Yeah.
We've got USAA potentially funding propaganda.
Right.
We've got language being weaponized for control.
Yeah.
And this Doge initiative,
Right.
which is either a valiant effort to expose the truth or a really clever distraction.
Right. Or maybe both. Who knows?
My head is spinning. What does the article say we should do about all this?
Well, they seem to be pinning their hopes on, wait for it, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin
As
in the cryptocurrency. What does that have to do with, like, shady government dealings and propaganda?
Right. Seems a little out of left field.
It does, yeah.
But they're not talking about, using Bitcoin to buy your groceries.
Right.
It's more about the technology behind it,
Okay.
which is called blockchain.
Blockchain, yeah.
And it represents, they say, a fundamental shift towards decentralization,
Decentralization.
which they think can create more transparent and accountable systems,
Okay.
not just for finance, but for information and governance too.
So it's not just about money.
Yeah.
It's about, like, who controls the information, who controls the systems.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see where they're going with this.
Yeah.
So it's not about everybody suddenly using Bitcoin to buy groceries,
Right.
but rather using the underlying principles of, like, decentralization to create systems that are, well, harder to manipulate, harder to control.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fewer people at the top, more power to the people.
That's the idea.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
but wouldn't those in power resist this?
Of course.
They're not just going to give up control that easily, are they?
Well, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Decentralization. It's not like a magic bullet.
Right.
But the article argues that the technology behind Bitcoin, that blockchain thing,
Yeah. Blockchain.
it offers a way to create systems that are inherently resistant to manipulation, they say.
Blockchain. That word gets thrown around a lot these days. Can you explain it to me in a way that, like, my grandma could understand it?
Okay, so imagine like a giant public ledger
Okay.
that records every single transaction, every piece of information.
Like a permanent record.
Yeah, and this ledger is distributed across a vast network of computers.
So no one can tamper with it.
Right, so no single entity can alter it,
Okay.
which makes it incredibly secure and transparent.
Okay, so it's like having a permanent, unchangeable record of, like, everything. Right. But how does that translate to, like, fighting propaganda?
Good question.
Yeah.
Imagine a media landscape that's decentralized,
Okay.
where news and information aren't just coming from these big corporations,
Right.
but from a vast network of like independent journalists,
Mm.
citizen reporters, and with blockchain, we could crack the origins of information,
Oh,
verify sources, make it much harder to spread misinformation.
that's a cool idea. I like that. But the media is already dominated by these huge conglomerates,
It is.
I mean, is it even realistic to think we could, like, break their grip on information?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
But the article points to the rise of independent media,
Okay.
citizen journalism, as a sign that things are already changing.
Right.
Platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and even Substack,
Yeah.
they're enabling people to bypass those traditional gatekeepers
I see. Go right to the source.
and reach their audiences directly.
Yeah, it's true. More and more people are getting their news from, these alternative sources now.
They are.
So is blockchain the key to empowering those independent voices? Is that going to create a more diverse, media ecosystem?
It has the potential, yeah. The article argues that by combining these decentralized platforms with blockchain technology, we can create a system where truth and transparency actually have a fighting chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears for a second.
Okay.
Let's talk about that other big issue they brought up. Government waste?
Right.
They seem to think this Doge initiative is, the answer, but honestly, I'm still skeptical.
Yeah, skepticism is healthy.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to government, right?
Right.
But the article does present some compelling arguments in favor of Doge.
Okay.
They emphasize Doge's focus on data analysis and transparency.
Okay.
Imagine having real-time access to government spending data. Like, you could track every dollar and see exactly where it's going.
Yeah, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
It would.
But wouldn't that require, a massive overhaul of the entire government bureaucracy?
It would be a huge task, no doubt.
Yeah.
But the article argues that Doge, with its backing from, Elon Musk, Donald Trump,
No, those guys.
could have the leverage to push for those changes.
I mean, it's hard to imagine those two agreeing on anything,
It is.
let alone something as complex as government reform. But hey, stranger things have happened, no?
That's true.
Okay, so let's just assume for a moment that Doge is as effective as this article claims. Okay.
Right.
Does that really address the root of the problem, though?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Exposing waste, it's important.
Yeah.
It's only one part of the solution, right?
Right.
We also need to address the underlying systems and incentives that allow this corruption to happen in the first place.
So it's not just about catching the bad guys.
No.
It's about changing the rules of the game.
That's it.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
One last piece of the puzzle here I want to touch on.
Okay.
This whole idea of, the weaponization of language. I get it. Words can be powerful.
They are.
But can decentralization really stop people from twisting words, for their own agendas?
It's a tough one. Decentralization can create, a more diverse and open marketplace of ideas,
Okay.
but it can't necessarily prevent people from using language in manipulative ways.
Right.
Think of it like this. You can give everyone a megaphone, but you can't control what they say through it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right.
Okay, so even in a decentralized world, we still need to be, vigilant and critical thinkers.
Absolutely. The article emphasizes this,
Yeah.
the importance of individual responsibility and critical thinking, no matter what the technology is.
Okay.
We need to be aware of the power of language,
Yeah.
to be able to identify when it's being used to manipulate us.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
Decentralization isn't just about technology.
Yeah.
It's about shifting power dynamics and creating a more transparent and accountable world.
Mm.
But it also requires us, as individuals, to be more informed and engaged,
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for the information we consume
Yeah.
and the choices that we make.
And we can't just rely on, systems or technology to solve these problems, right?
You got it.
It requires a shift in mindset
It does.
and a commitment to critical thinking.
You got it.
Man, this deep dive has really, challenged my assumptions about how information is controlled and how much power we actually have as individuals.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, it feels like we've only, scratched the surface of this whole rabbit hole.
We have, and that's the beauty of exploring complex issues like this, right?
It is.
It's about asking those tough questions.
Right.
Challenging conventional wisdom, and ultimately coming to our own conclusions.
Well, I'm definitely feeling more informed, but also, a bit overwhelmed, to be honest.
I get it.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
But, it's good. It's good.
It is good. It's good to be challenged.
Right, it is. It is.
And that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
Make you think.
All right, before we get too lost in the, philosophical weeds here, let's bring it back to the article for a second. All right.
What are some of the most, striking claims that you think our listeners should really be paying attention to?
Well, what stood out to you?
Honestly, the whole idea of USAID being used as a propaganda tool, that was pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I always thought of them as like a humanitarian organization,
Right.
not a branch of the Ministry of Truth, you know?
It is a significant allegation.
It is, yeah.
And it raises questions about, the motivations and activities of government agencies,
Yeah.
especially those operating overseas.
Yeah, especially overseas, yeah.
If the article's claims are true, it suggests that the lines between aid, diplomacy, and propaganda, they're getting really blurry.
Really blurry, yeah. It's hard to tell what's what.
Exactly.
And then there's this whole Doge thing, right?
Yeah, Doge, yeah.
It's either a genuine effort to reform the system,
Right.
or a very clever attempt to maintain the status quo. I'm not sure what to believe at this point,
That's the thing about navigating the information landscape these days.
It's full of uncertainty, conflicting narratives, and,
It is.
it's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
It really is.
The key is to stay skeptical,
Okay.
Do your own research,
Yeah.
consider multiple perspectives before forming an opinion.
Right. Don't just take someone's word for it, even if they sound smart.
Exactly.
Okay.
You got it.
So we've got USAID, we've got Doge,
Right.
and this whole decentralization movement.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, and it raises some pretty, fundamental questions about how we understand the world.
It does. It really makes you question who to trust.
Yeah, who to trust, where to get your information from. It's
Yeah.
like the rug has been pulled out from under us,
I know what you mean.
and we're trying to find our footing in this new reality.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to cultivate those critical thinking skills
Okay.
and be aware of, the potential biases and agendas that can shape the information we consume. We can't afford to just be passive consumers of information in a world where truth itself seems to be up for grabs.
Truth is up for grabs. Yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
It is. It really is.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
USAID, Orwellian language, this enigmatic Doge initiative.
Right.
And now the intriguing potential of Bitcoin.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to take a step back and consider the broader implications of these claims.
Okay.
If even a fraction of what this article argues is true.
Yeah.
It really forces us to rethink how we view information, power, and, the future of democracy itself.
Okay, that's a pretty heavy topic, but I'm ready to dive in, I think.
What do you
So
think?
stay tuned for part 2.
Yes.
Where we'll explore these complex issues and try to make sense of it all.
We'll do our best.
All right. Welcome back, folks. Last time we left off with, well, honestly, our heads spinning a little bit, right? From all this stuff about USA, Doge, and Bitcoin as like a solution to, the system.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But I'm still a little fuzzy on how this whole decentralization thing actually works.
Yeah, that's fair. It is a complex topic.
So can we maybe break it down a bit more?
Sure. So imagine a system where information isn't just controlled by, like, a few big players,
Okay.
like governments, big corporations, those media giants.
Right.
But instead it's spread out across a huge network, kind of like, the internet itself.
Okay, so instead of like a pyramid, it's more like a spider web. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I can picture that.
Yeah, and so how does that actually help with stuff like, propaganda and government waste?
Yeah, that's what I don't get.
Okay, so think of it this way. Right now, you have a handful of powerful institutions, right?
Yeah, the big guys.
Right, and they act like these gatekeepers,
Right.
controlling the flow of information,
Right.
the resources.
Yeah,
And that makes it easier for them to, manipulate the narrative
sure.
and even hide their own shady dealings.
So more centralized power equals more corruption, basically.
Yeah, that's the idea. But
Mm-hmm.
with a decentralized system, that power is, distributed amongst a much wider network.
Okay.
And that makes it way harder for any one single entity to manipulate things for their own gain.
So it's like having a million checks and balances working all at the same time?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the appeal of that.
Yeah.
But wouldn't those in power resist this big time? I mean, come on. Are they just going to give up control that easily?
Of course they'll resist it, but that's the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
And the article argues that, this technology behind Bitcoin,
Blockchain.
it actually offers a way to create systems that are much, much harder to manipulate.
Okay, so back to blockchain.
Yeah,
That word gets thrown around so much these days.
it does.
Can you give me like a simple explanation?
Okay, so imagine a giant ledger.
Okay, a ledger.
Yeah, a public one.
Okay.
And it records every transaction, every piece of information.
Oh, wow.
And it's distributed across like a huge network of computers,
Okay.
so no one can alter it.
So it's like a permanent, unchangeable record of everything.
Exactly. And that makes it super secure and transparent.
Okay, I get that part.
Yeah.
But how does that actually help us, like, fight propaganda?
Good question. So imagine a media landscape that's, totally decentralized.
Right.
News and information. It's not coming from just a few big corporations.
Right.
But from a network of, like, a ton of independent journalists, citizen reporters.
Okay, I like that.
Right. And with blockchain, we could actually track the origins of information,
Oh, wow.
verify their sources,
Right.
and make it much, much harder to spread misinformation.
That's a pretty cool idea.
It is.
But, the media is already dominated by these huge, conglomerates.
Right.
So is it really realistic to think we can actually break their grip on information? Is that even possible?
It's a good question. And the article points to, things like the rise of independent media, citizen journalism, as a sign that things are changing.
Right.
Platforms like X, Substack, they're helping people bypass the traditional gatekeepers.
Yeah, they're going around them.
Exactly, going straight to the audience.
Yeah, that's true. More and more people are getting their news from those alternative sources now.
They are.
So is blockchain the key to, like, empowering those independent voices and creating a more diverse media landscape?
It definitely has that potential.
Interesting.
The article argues that if you combine, these decentralized platforms with blockchain technology, it creates a system where truth and transparency actually have a fighting chance.
Okay, I like that.
Okay.
All right, let's switch gears for a minute and go back to this whole government waste thing.
Okay.
They seem to think Doge is the answer, but I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, it's good to be skeptical.
But they did make some interesting points about Doge, like their focus on data analysis and transparency.
Right. Imagine having real-time access to government spending data.
Oh, man.
You could track every dollar, see exactly where it's going.
That would be amazing, but that would require a complete overhaul of the entire government bureaucracy, wouldn't it?
It would be a huge undertaking, but the article argues that Doge, with their backing from, Elon Musk, Donald Trump,
Right, those guys.
they might actually have the influence to make it happen.
I mean, it's hard to imagine those two agreeing on anything.
It is a strange pairing, for sure.
Let alone something as complex as, government reform, but stranger things have happened, right?
That's true.
Okay, let's just say for a second that Doge is actually as effective as they claim in the article, okay?
Yeah.
Does that really get to the root of the problem?
That's the question, isn't it?
Hmm.
Because exposing waste, it's important,
Yeah.
but it's only part of the solution.
Right.
We also need to look at the systems and incentives that allow that corruption to happen in the first place.
So it's not just about catching the bad guys, it's about changing how the game is played. Exactly.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I want to talk about. This idea of weaponizing language. Okay, I get it. Words can be powerful. They can be used to manipulate people.
They can.
But can decentralization really stop people from doing that? From twisting words for their own agenda?
That's a tough one. Decentralization, it can create a more diverse, more open marketplace of ideas.
Right.
But it can't force people to use language, honestly.
Right, yeah.
Think of it this way. You can give everyone a megaphone,
Okay.
but you can't control what they shout through it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So even in this decentralized world, we still need to be careful, think critically.
So we can't just turn off our brains and trust that the system will fix everything, right?
Exactly. We still need to be aware of the power of language and when it's being used to manipulate us.
Okay, so be skeptical, do your research, be aware of the biases.
That's it.
Man, this deep dive has really changed how I think about, how information is controlled.
And how much power we have as individuals to actually change things.
It is powerful stuff.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this rabbit hole, though.
I know what you mean. It's a big topic.
It is, but it's good. It's good stuff.
It is. It's good to be challenged.
It is. It makes you think.
Exactly. That's what we're here for.
Okay, before we go too far down this, philosophical rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's bring it back to the article for a second.
Okay.
What are some of the, the key takeaways that our listeners should really be paying attention to? What really stood out to you?
Well, what struck you?
I mean, the whole idea of USAID being used as, a propaganda tool, that was pretty mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I always thought of them as a humanitarian organization, Not some branch of, a ministry of truth or something.
It is a big claim, and it raises serious questions about, what these government agencies are really doing, especially overseas.
Yeah. especially overseas.
If what the article says is true, then the lines between aid, diplomacy, propaganda, it's all getting really blurry.
It really is. It's hard to know what to believe.
Exactly. And then there's this whole Doge thing.
Right. Doge.
Is it a real effort to reform things, or is it just a clever way to keep things the same?
I don't know what to think, honestly.
That's the thing about information these days.
It's tough.
It's full of uncertainty, so many conflicting stories, it's hard to know what's true.
It really is.
So the key is to stay skeptical,
Okay.
Do your research, look at different perspectives before you form an opinion.
Right. Don't just take one person's word for it.
That's exactly.
Okay, so we've got USAID, Doge, this whole decentralization movement. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It really makes you think about how we understand the world, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It makes you question who you can trust.
Yeah, who to trust, where to get your information.
It's like the rug's been pulled out from under us, and we're trying to find our footing in this new reality.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And that's why it's so important to develop those critical thinking skills, to be aware of the biases and agendas that shape the information we consume.
So we can't just be passive consumers of information in a world where, like, truth itself is up for grabs.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive,
We have.
but we're not done yet.
No, not yet.
There's one more big piece of this puzzle we need to explore. The future of democracy and information in a world where, it seems like truth itself is up for grabs.
That's the big question, and that's what we'll be discussing in the final part of our deep dive.
So stick around, folks. We're going deep on this one. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive. I hope you guys are ready for this.
Yeah, this is where it gets real.
So we've explored USAID's alleged role in, shaping the narrative. We've talked about the weaponization of language.
It's a powerful tool.
It is powerful. And this mysterious Doge initiative. And, of course, the potential of Bitcoin, blockchain, to disrupt the whole system.
Decentralization.
Yeah. But now we're facing the ultimate question. What does this all mean for, the future? What's the future of democracy and information in a world where it seems like truth is up for grabs?
That's the big one, isn't it? And if even a fraction of what this article claims is actually true, it's a little unsettling.
It is. It really is.
If we can't even trust organizations like USA, if we can't even trust the words that we use every day,
Right.
what can we trust?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, everything we thought we knew about, how the world works is being called into question. Like, is it all just a giant illusion?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a complete illusion.
Okay.
But it definitely highlights how important it is to be, critical thinkers,
Okay.
to be really discerning about the information that we consume.
So we have to, be careful. What are we reading? Who are we listening to?
Exactly. And this article itself, even if you don't agree with everything it says, it's a bit of a wake-up call.
It is.
'Cause it reminds us that we can't just passively accept everything we're told, even if it's coming from, a source that seems authoritative, like the government or something.
Right.
We got to think for ourselves.
So awareness is the first step. Then what? I mean, it's easy to feel powerless. When you're up against these massive systems of control, what can one person really do to change anything?
Well, the article suggests some solutions. Embracing decentralized technologies, supporting initiatives like Doge.
Okay, but what about, practical steps? How do we go from feeling powerless to actually taking back some control of the narrative?
Well, for one thing, we got to be a lot more discerning about the information we take in.
Okay, how do we do that? Be more specific.
Question everything, Cross-check your sources. Don't just blindly accept what you read or hear, even if it comes from, a big news outlet.
To fact check.
Exactly. And with so much information out there, it can feel overwhelming, right?
It really can.
But that's where critical thinking is so important.
Okay, so how do we, flex those critical thinking muscles? What does that even look like?
Look for arguments that are based on evidence.
Okay.
Consider the biases of whoever's giving you the information.
Right.
And be wary of that emotionally charged language.
Oh, yeah. That's designed to manipulate.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to really dive deep into topics that interest you.
Okay.
The internet, it has its downsides for sure, but it also gives us access to so much information, so many different perspectives.
Okay, so be skeptical, do your own research, don't just rely on one source for your news. Got it.
You got it. Anything else?
Yeah, give me more. What else can we do?
Have those difficult conversations with people who hold different viewpoints.
Oof, Okay, yeah, those can be tough.
They can be, but they're so important.
Okay, why?
Because it's so easy to just stay in our own echo chambers.
Oh, yeah.
But that just makes our biases even stronger.
Okay, true.
You've got to challenge yourself to really listen to opposing viewpoints, understand where they're coming from, and look for that common ground.
I get it, but honestly, it sounds kind of exhausting.
It can be.
It's so much easier to just, be around people who already agree with me.
I hear you. But it's crucial if we want to build a society that's more informed and more tolerant.
Okay, I see your point.
If we all just retreat into our own little echo chambers,
Yeah.
the divides between us are just going to get bigger and bigger.
Okay, point taken. So be skeptical, do your own research, talk to people with different viewpoints. What else? Give me one more.
Support independent media and journalism.
Okay, how to do that?
Look for outlets that are transparent about their funding. Are they committed to ethical reporting?
Okay, so look for the good guys.
Exactly. The more diverse and independent our media landscape is, the harder it is for any one narrative to control it all.
And that kind of ties back into the whole decentralization idea, right? A more distributed media landscape is going to be harder to manipulate.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you.
And finally, don't underestimate the power of your own voice.
Okay.
Speak up, share your perspective, and hold those in power accountable.
So it's not just about taking in information, it's about putting it out there, too.
Exactly. We're not just passive recipients of information. We're active participants in shaping the narrative.
I like that. That's empowering.
The more engaged we are, the more likely we are to create a world where truth and transparency have a real chance.
Okay, so the future of democracy and information, it's not like some set thing.
No, it's not.
It's something that we create.
We create it through the choices that we make and the actions that we take.
Wow, this deep dive has been a wild ride, I've got to say.
It has.
Lots of twists and turns, lots of food for thought. I'm walking away with more questions than answers, but I feel like I've got a purpose now?
And that's a good thing, that curiosity, that willingness to question.
Yeah,
It's so important in a world where the information landscape is changing all the time.
it really is.
Never stop questioning.
So to our listener out there, we encourage you to, keep exploring these topics, challenge your own assumptions, and talk to other people, get their perspective.
Yeah. Have those tough conversations.
Have those tough conversations.
The future of democracy and information, it's really in our hands.
Let's make it one worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged, folks.